Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems.
Hey, I'm Tom Gozy. Welcome to Hot and Cold. This week we're going to look at some more trim. Oh, I'm so sick of trim. Not really. I'm having a lot of fun putting the trim on the house, and we're almost done. So we're going to look at what we have accomplished in the past week and see what else there might be something else left to do. I'm not sure what it is, but I'll have to think about it. Well, we take baby steps when we put trim on, and you have to put the time in if you're going to do it right. I think we're doing it right. We got the front door pretty much trimmed out. We still have some bits to do, but I don't know if you remember way back when, oh, those many months ago, when we took the original door out, this was recessed into the house about 6 to 8 inches. And it was a great place for water to penetrate in, and it did, and it rotted the sill and did a lot of bad things to the house. So we've got everything out in the front and the plane with the front wall here, which is where it should be, but I wanted to try to get the look that we had originally. Well, you can only go so far in trying to fake out the fact that the door is recessed 6 inches. So I kind of thought about it a little bit and chewed on it, and what I came up with was this. We did the door. We have a bigger dimension in between the door and the side lights than if we had a prepackaged system. If we got a prepackaged door with side lights, that trim detail would only be about 2 inches wide because it's all put together. There was more width here before, so we did this with double 2x here, and we got a full 6-inch board on either side of the door just to make it look a little more beefy. Then I looked at it and I thought about it and I said, well, we're not recessing. Let's wrap the whole perimeter of the windows, the side lights, and the door with another 1x6, which is what we did. We went all around the top and down and to here. We routed the bottom edge here to drain water where there are drip edges, and then tried to keep it together in between. And then we went and we put our pediments or posts, whatever we want to call them, like the corner of the house has, a little recessed panel. And this originally was a 1x4, and we have 1x4 here again with roughly a 5.5 inch panel or inset piece in the middle. So we put that on either side. Then we went on top and put a double step, which was there originally. Then we built out a little mini roof, and we've got a crown molding on that. And then on the very top there you see a motion detector switch because we've got some lights. I got that hooked up last night, and so we actually have lights at nighttime. And we'll talk a little bit more about the wiring there because there's some interesting stuff related to wiring for outside of the building. So this is pretty much done. Now, everybody has asked me who has been here, what is this? Is that a detail? Is that some kind of artsy detail? No, it's just a piece I didn't put in yet. The way we do these is we put this piece in, we rabbit it out the edge, we set the panel in place, then we put this in to lock it in, just like a recessed panel kitchen cabinet would be built. So I just have pieces to do there. If I go down to the corner here, you get a better idea. These are about 11 feet long, and you can see the top is missing as well as the bottom. And it's just been waiting for me to take the time to mill out these little pieces, which I'll probably do today if we have time. It's a gorgeous sunny day. And then those corners will be almost done. We're not quite complete yet because if you may not remember, but I do, up the top of those posts, or the corners here, there was a lot of trim. As a matter of fact, let me go get I saved the trim. Let me go get a piece and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so you know, the really important detail parts, I took pictures of everything, digital photos, and the smaller trim pieces that were a little bit fancier, I saved. And we had two pieces, actually there were more than two, but these are the major two. This was a cap that went at the top, and then there was sort of a molding that went underneath, and then there was a couple of pieces of 1/4 inch stock just to jazz it up a bit. I saved these, excuse me, because I wanted to get the dimensions accurately. So this was recessed underneath the fascia boards up there. So what we're going to do is take a piece of 5/4, I have some 5/4 left, we're going to mill it out 3 inches wide, and then we'll countersink some holes here, and we'll screw that in to the facade and wrap the corners. So we've got 4 corners, we'll have 8 pieces, and they'll go around the corner. And then this piece, which is bigger, this is about 2.5 by 2 3/4, something like that. We'll have to laminate a couple of pieces together to build up the detail, although I'm chewing on the idea of doing a crown molding. But crown molding is a real pain in the butt to do. So, and I don't think any of the corners are, I think they're square, but I may just go with the same beefy look that was here originally. So I saved these till I'm done, and then we'll let them go. So that goes on all the top of all the 4 corners, and also goes over here by the door. There was that same kind of top to these, I call them pediments, you know, they're like columns, and it's sort of a Georgian look, where there's a cap to it, or Grecian, like Grecian formula. Yeah, I do need to touch up, don't I? But so we'll do that. We'll urethane caulk everything, and it will shed water, and it'll be fairly simple to put in. It's just a little bit of millwork time. And speaking of millwork time, let's take a break here, and I'll show you how little millwork there is left to do. So I just wanted to go inside the door now and show you what a difference it's made having these side lights on either side of the door. Not like if you have side lights on your front door, you know what it's like, but it is very similar to what was here before. These are fiberglass side lights, just like the door. They're made by Stanley. And when all is said and done, when it's trimmed out, I think we're going to be pretty happy with it. One of the things we've been doing along the way here is we started doing more serious wiring again, because it's the time, it's so dark at night that if I'm working here in the evening, I really have a hard time seeing. And you know what happened? I have a halogen light, and one bulb burnt out of the halogen light one night, and I forgot, of course, to get the new bulbs. And I came in, plugged it in the next night, and the second one went boom like that. So I said, you know, it's time to get some overhead lights done. So we're slowly putting that together. One of the things we've done is we started wiring all the outside lights, and we have 2 switches. We have one goes to the front porch, where there's 2 on either side of the door, and then on the gable end here, there's just a motion detector spotlight which illuminates the driveway. And this has, of course, a motion detector. So there was a lot of wiring. We have the motion detector switch up here. We had to bring that in to this box to tie together with the 2 lights on either side of the door. You notice wherever wire has come through, I have been meticulous about foaming everything, because once I've made this building nice and tight and I continue to close up everything, I don't want to be poking holes. I don't want to have water leaking in particular, because again, I'm really beginning to appreciate the coastal climate is a lot different than up in town in Bangor, dear. So we're getting there. All this is live now. And I want to go over to the fuse box and just show you a couple of things we're doing there that are relevant to good wiring. Well, of course, all this comes together at the circuit breaker box. And the outside lights, I wanted to put on a ground fault interrupter. Anything that is in wet environments, that would be the kitchen, the bathroom, and any outside outlets, all should have ground fault interrupters. And a ground fault interrupter protects you from getting electrocuted. If you're outside where you're apt to have wet feet, you're in contact with the ground. If you touch something that's hot, you will not die, or at least you will not get much of a shock. So a ground fault interrupter is important. I like to use ground fault interrupters on my outside lights as well. And what I did in the case of all the outside lights here is there's two kinds of ground fault interrupters. There's one that goes in the circuit breaker box. This will be a regular circuit breaker here. And this is a ground fault interrupter. And it's a little bit different, as you can see. It's bigger. There's an extra wire here, excuse me, and the two wires that would go to the circuit, which are these two, this is the hot, this is the neutral, feed in here. And then there's a separate neutral feed that goes to the ground fault interrupter. And everything is electronically monitored and senses when you try to electrocute yourself. So that's a good thing. That cost about 30 bucks. I was amazed. I haven't bought a ground fault interrupter that goes in a panel box for a long time. And when I bought it, or I first looked at it, I said, oh my goodness. But it's convenient, it's there. There's another kind of ground fault interrupter. This is the one most folks use. This is one that goes right into an electrical box. And that's a fair bit cheaper. And it's the same capacity as this one that's in the panel here. This is only about, they're anywhere from $8 to $11. And this is rated for 20 amps as well. And I put this one outside. I'll show you in a little bit. We have two outside outlets, and I've got one on this side and one on that side. And you can feed a second outlet. You only need to have one ground fault interrupter, and then you can feed other outlets. And they come with little labels that you stick on the boxes that tell you that you have a protected outlet, and you would use these in the kitchen, you'd use them outdoors, wherever you have a outlet that is downstream from this device, and they all then are protected. So we've got some of these too, and actually I bought more than I needed, but it doesn't matter because we'll be putting them all over the place in the bathroom, in the kitchen. So one interesting thing, when Mr. Bozo was putting the hole through the building for the outside unit, for the ground fault interrupter, I drilled through and I hit an electrical wire, and I had my hand on the drill bit, and I got what, as we say in Maine, I got lifted. And it really doesn't, I must be getting more resistant as I get older, because it really doesn't hurt that bad. But I said a few choice words, ran downstairs to make sure I had set the house on fire. And what happened was the point of the drill just punctured the wire, the outer sheath on the Romex cable, which is here. So you have this outer sheath, then you have the hot wire, which would be this black one, and it just poked through these two. And if you didn't know that I had done that, you couldn't tell because it was such a small little hole. It hadn't drilled the wire or anything. At that point, you have to cut out that part. Let's go downstairs and take a look at that. So down in the basement, we're making some progress and we're cleaning stuff up and getting ready. A couple things I want to show you down here. The first is what happens when you make a mistake. This is the wire that the hole I drilled to come through for the outside outlet, and this is a feed wire here that goes to circuit breaker, and this goes to the other outlet on the other side of the building. And there was a wire right here. You can see where the staple was, and you can see I intersected with it very well. So what I then had to do, when you do this kind of thing, when you poke a hole in a wire, you can't leave the wire. You don't put electrical tape over it. You don't put duct tape over it. You have to cut out the section that has been compromised. So what I did was, it went to an outlet which was over in that vicinity. I went to the outlet, disconnected I cut the wire, killed the power of course, cut the wire. I went back a ways, pulled the wire back a ways, cut it. I decided to put an electrical box in, and I've used this outlet as a junction. I could have just put a box in and wire nutted two wires together, but I said, well, as long as I'm here, well, I just put an outlet in. I've got a spare outlet in the basement. And then I ran a new piece of Romex over to the outlet that I had interrupted. And that's all set. So it took me an hour to do that, and I felt really stupid about it. But one of the issues was we had covered the wires with spray foam, and it was kind of hidden, and I thought I was okay, but I wasn't. So, anything you do that you make a mistake on, you can fix. Short of killing somebody, and I haven't done that yet, so we're okay there. Other thing I want to show you is over here. We do need to have some support posts in the basement because we have stairs and stuff, and we have a carrying beam that needs support. And we had these steel lally columns, and these are pretty good devices. But there's a problem with these. When you set them on concrete, they're going to rust. And this basement floor tends to be a little bit wetter than I would like to see. And what they did when they redid the basement, 18 years ago or so, they cast these right into the floor. And it's just guaranteed they're going to rot away. So what I've done is I've cut them out of where they were stuck in the floor. I cut them out. And then I wanted to use these because they're really convenient and I needed to adjust and level up the floor. So I jacked the floor up with a jack, a hydraulic jack. And then I got a piece of rubber roofing and cut it out about a foot square. And then we did this. I made up a base that is 1 foot square of 2 by 12 pressure treated. And then I have another piece, 2 by 6 pressure treated, perpendicular to the grain. Then I've got the metal pad that supports the lally column. Then I have the column there on top of it. Now this is up off the floor 3 inches. We've cut the capillarity. Any moisture that, if this was a really wet floor, any moisture that would come up would probably not get into the wood, and if it did, it would have to go up through 2 pieces to get to the steel. So this should last a lot longer than if it was used the way it usually is used, which is right on the floor. Also, these are carrying a fair bit of load, and usually when you do a post in a basement, you have a footing underneath it. Well, we know there's no footings here, and the slab is not very thick. It's only about 3 inches thick. So I wanted to distribute the load. If I put this on here without the piece of steel, it would go right down into the wood. No problem. It just almost like it was a die cutting a hole. So this distributes the load out over 16 square inches. Then we distribute it over 5 by 12, so that's 60 square inches. And then we go to this one, which is a square foot. So we're distributing out that load so we don't have an impact on the slab where we're going to crack it. So that's what we did. It made it real easy. We're going to take a break here. Before we do, let me just show you over here. We've got 3 of these posts now on underneath the main carrying beam. And you can see up here, I even put a 1 by 6, a 2 by 6 underneath, just because you could see how deformed that metal plate was getting from the load. A lot of load on this. And this is transmitting up to the 2nd floor. So we really are trying to stiffen up the building, and we've got to do that structurally the right way. So I think we've done it the right way. Speaking of the right thing to do, we've got to take a break. We'll be right back. Well, we're outside again, back of the house. I can't believe it's end of November and it's nice and relatively warm out. This is the window we did a couple of weeks ago. Still looks the same. You notice we put the trim up though. There's a little piece of molding right underneath that cap. And we put that on all the windows, and we used a VHB tape, which is a very high bond tape. It's a double-face sticky tape. And then it's caulked with the urethane caulk, and that baby's done. So those windows are done. We will paint them at some point next year. The other thing we've done after we did the corners is we put a trim board down at the bottom here. And there wasn't one here originally, but I kind of liked the look, and I felt it really kind of tied all the trim together, and we had enough trim left over. So, as a matter of fact, I made a mistake. I didn't have enough. Then I was going to use 1 by 10. And I've been looking at old houses, and 1 by 6 is more appropriate, and that's what we had left anyway, because I made a mistake on the 1 by 10 order, but you know what that's like. So we had enough to do it. It's there. It's done. Well, you noticed a few minutes ago that we had taken the furnace and the oil tank out of the basement. We haven't done anything with the furnace yet. We'll get rid of it today. And what we had to do, because it was so big, we broke it out into its components. So, whenever you have, what a great philosophy for life. If you have a big problem, you break it into little pieces and it gets taken care of. So what we did with the furnace, because it was very cumbersome, we took all the sheet metal enclosure off of it. It's very well engineered. It was a thermopride furnace. And we were left with the heavy bit, which is the combustion chamber and the heat exchanger. and 3 of us were able to hoist that out of the basement and set it out here. We had the truck full with all the other stuff. So this will go today, and we'll put it all back together again and use it in some other location. So it's kind of fun to take things apart and look at them and put them back together. This is, just so you see, they have a, the oil burner went in here. We put a coffee can in there just to hold everything together. And there's fire brick in the combustion chamber where the oil gun would fire into, and then the heat goes up into this big metal enclosure, in case you've never seen it, and we blow air over that and heat the air for the house. And what happens with lesser furnaces in particular is a lot of times this steel will crack where it's exposed to the flame. Thermopride doesn't have that happen very often as a problem because it's a very well engineered unit. So anyway, glad that it's out of the basement. I'm glad somebody's going to get good use out of it. My friend Jim is going to put it in his chicken barn, and that will be wonderful. So we're making progress. One other faux pas, error, thing I did that was stupid that we need to look at as the Stupid Show with Tom continues. Well, yesterday, I was up here poking the holes through the building for the wiring and had a can of foam so I could foam the wire back in place and we wouldn't have any leaks. And the can was sitting up top there and it fell off. And this is what happened. It became like adult silly string. And the interesting thing, you know, is the can, this part broke off and I thought, oh, it's going to spew a little bit. And it kept spewing because the can actually made a hole in the side. And I don't know how the heck it did it. There's a hole right in the side there. I'm not going to go too far with it because it'll probably spew some more at me. And it just shot foam out and dried up. Whenever you do something like this, don't try to clean it up right away. You leave it so you can show all your friends. And you can show people on your TV show. And it is very difficult to clean up canned foam when it's wet. You need to use a solvent like acetone or something like that. And when it's absolutely wet, when it's just come out of the can, you can use solvents, but you really don't want to be messing around with solvents a lot. Let it dry, and then you can go over to your garden where the foam silly string is, and you can just pick it. Oh man, that's like art. Look at that. Oh man, I could sell that, couldn't I? The hot and cold screw up artwork. Anyway, now it's very easy to pick up, and with no serious environmental damage and no foam on your clothing like that, it's much simpler to clean up. If it gets on your clothes, you probably want to use solvent, but if it's on the ground someplace like this, or it's on the building. I had some on the building here. There's some on the ice and water shield here. You know, once that dries, you can usually just scratch it away with your finger. And I've gotten it on the AZIC trim, and it just comes right off. So let the stuff set, and then you can scrape it off easily, even if you have to use a putty knife. It doesn't take long, and it's a much easier process. You're not exposing yourself to any more contact with any more chemicals than you need to be in contact with. On that happy note, we got to get some caulking done because the sun is shining. It's going that way down in the west too early, and we got to get things done here. We got to seal all these edges to keep rain out. We're going to use the urethane caulk, just like we did everywhere else. And when that's done, we'll go back inside and do some more wiring. We're out of time. We'll see you next week. We're getting close to Christmas. We're going to show you some stuff to get for Christmas the next week or two. Give us a call on the radio if you have any questions. You see we're at the end of the show. And have a great one.
Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems.